What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, May 21st, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We've got a lot to talk about today. Mike is sitting in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. And in hour number 2, we'll be ready to handle your phone calls as you call on in with your comments, questions, and opinions. So let's get right on into it. Obviously, the big news coming from yesterday. And by the way, we had a hardware failure here. Which is why I couldn't do the show yesterday, for those of you who were concerned about that. But Michigan has had not one, but 2 dams collapse. The Edenville and Sanford dams, one of them apparently ruptured from too much rain. And then when that surge got further down the river, it ruptured the second one. And it's just caused a huge, huge mess, 9 feet of water. They're calling it a 500-year event, and just caused a huge amount of damage. 10,000 people were evacuated. And apparently the local media there is saying that the state government bears some of the responsibility for the poor oversight that contributed to the failure of these dams. And apparently one of the companies that were operating one of the dams, their license was revoked back in 2018. So Governor Whitmer is saying Michigan will pursue every legal recourse possible against those responsible for the failures. Well, you know, this goes back to what I like to call the fireman analogy. Okay? Everybody loves a fireman when your place is already on fire. He comes in, chops up a bunch of stuff with the axe, sprays water over the rest of it, and hands you back half of what you had before, and he's a hero. You know, but the fire inspector who came through a few weeks ago and said you got to clean up those frayed wires and all those oily rags, that's the pain in the neck. And that's what's happening here. Nobody wanted to hear about how the dams were not holding up. They were deteriorating. One of them had been declared as unsafe. And now we're getting word there's another dam over in Virginia that might let go because of the heavy rains over there. Meanwhile, the world's largest chemical companies evacuated their headquarters as floodwaters mixed with Dow Chemicals containment ponds, which are full of all kinds of toxic materials. All righty. Now, Michigan all of a sudden has become a hotspot for politics. And Donald Trump is there right now visiting the Ford factory that's making ventilators. And Michigan is asking for emergency funds to deal with the damage from the dams, and Trump is saying no. He's making a big stink over the fact that Michigan is sending mail-in ballot applications, and Trump is threatening to stop federal funding for the state. And Trump is on the warpath against Michigan and Nevada for going ahead with this voting by mail entirely for the November election. Now, of course, Trump can't say what laws Michigan and Nevada are breaking because there doesn't seem to be one against it. But he does make a valid point. You know, these mail-in ballots can be copied, they can be counterfeited, they can be intercepted and filled out and mailed back on in. They had a big stink where somebody was filling out absentee ballot applications and pre-checking the Democrat boxes. Well, Donald, you knew that this was a problem coming into the White House. You made us a promise you were going to deal with it, that we were going to have honest, verifiable elections. And you had your big commission with all these people getting nice paychecks that didn't really come up with anything. Meanwhile, if you go to whatreallyhappened.com and look in the upper left, there's a little system there that is a far more honest, transparent, verifiable election system than used anywhere in this country right now. And you can have it for free, just out of the goodness of my heart. Okay, so let's talk about coronavirus because everybody else is talking about coronavirus. Here a virus, there a virus, everywhere a virus. And apparently the total number of people around the globe who have caught the coronavirus, COVID-19, surged past 5 million early today. And again, it's not like somebody has gone out there and actually counted patients. It's all based on models and guesstimates, emphasis on the guess. and they're not sure. And in fact, Claire and I were having a conversation about this earlier today, is the fact that so many people are just guessing as to what's going on, and nobody really knows with any certainty what's happening. It's like the CDC coming on out and saying it turns out, after all, that you can't catch the coronavirus from surfaces anywhere near as easily as first, suggested. That it was actually a little more difficult to catch coronavirus off a surface. That most transmission is person to person. They didn't know. Okay, fine, they didn't know. But isn't it their job to know? And if they didn't know, why did they go on air saying, yes, don't touch any surfaces? I know, precautionary principle and all that, but I think that's one of the reasons why people are getting sick and tired of the lockdowns, because they sense it's based on guesswork. They're tired of having their lives directed on the basis of wishful thinking and guessing and looking into the crystal ball and the tarot cards and all the rest of it here. By the way, little consumer warning. Apparently hand sanitizers left in hot cars under the sun could actually explode. They are made up primarily of alcohol. And even if they don't explode, the heat will almost certainly render it useless as the alcohol and other chemicals degrade. For those of you still buying the hand sanitizer. Japan may end the Tokyo state of emergency as early as next week, according to Shinzo Abe. And they're saying that if new coronavirus infections remain low, Abe said earlier today that the world's third largest economy may soon start recovering from recession. Well, good for them. All righty. Is wearing a face mask bad for you? We've had a lot of callers calling into the show talking about this. Apparently, this pediatrician over in New York did an experiment showing that her N95 mask did not drive up her carbon dioxide to dangerous levels as social media explodes with claims that masks can kill. Again, too many people guessing and don't know what they're talking about. I mean, if you really think about it, how large your lungs are compared to that space between the mask and your face. When you exhale, yes, the carbon dioxide is going to go through the mask and out into the atmosphere. And then when you inhale, you're going to inhale, for the most part, fresh air. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of recycled carbon dioxide, but not enough to kill you. Amazing how these little panic things get going. Over in California, there's a big fight going on where Governor Gavin Newsom is demanding federal bailout money, and he's threatening to fire all the police and firefighters if Trump doesn't bail California out. Newsom is out there saying there's no printing press here in the state of California. He needs the federal printing press to make things okay. And he's talking about, $1 trillion. And he's discussed California's $54 billion projected budget deficit and the cuts necessary to reach a balanced budget in light of coronavirus. Over in France, one of the country's top businessmen says that France could pay the cost of the coronavirus just by selling the Mona Lisa. Over there in the Louvre, its estimated worth is 50 billion euros. And that would be enough money to deal with the economic fallout from the coronavirus. Not likely to happen. All right, now, a little story here. This is coming out of Russia today, how the US and UK media have ratcheted up the COVID-19 information war against Russia to distract from problems at home. And yes, they have. Russia's this and Russia's that. And for a few weeks, it seemed like the media had decided to tone down its usual Russia bashing while the country grappled with the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, no, they went right back to it. And let's see, sample of some of the headlines that we have here. New York Times, a coronavirus mystery explained. Moscow has 1,700 extra deaths. The Times, coronavirus, Russia may be covering up true death toll. CNN, coronavirus has devastated Moscow. Now it's spreading across Russia's 11 time zones to ill-funded regions. Bloomberg, experts want to know why coronavirus hasn't killed more Russians. Come on, coronavirus, get out there and do your work. Russia's COVID, this is Financial Times, Russia's COVID death toll could be 70% higher than the official figure. So, bashing is back here. Meanwhile, over in Gaza, Gazans are bracing themselves for the worst following discovery of more coronavirus infections because they don't have the medical supplies to deal with it. Because Israel is interdicting it, which is another fancy name for stealing, as it tries to cross the border into the Gaza Strip. So they've got this punishing blockade, 3 wars since 2007, and they're just not prepared to deal with COVID-19. They're already struggling to cope with chronic illnesses due to shortages in medications. I find it a little disgusting that so many countries, so many people are trying to weaponize the situation. I mean, that stands in stark contrast with what we were told at the very beginning of all this, that this thing could be a threat to the entire human race. Well, then fine. Let's get the human race to unite together to deal with this. Instead of everybody out there saying, how can we sick this on our enemies? We can turn this around. We can weaponize it. We can turn it to our purposes. Shows a certain short-sightedness in thinking. All it's going to take is one nasty mutation. The whole thing is going to get ugly. All right, let's talk about domestic politics here. And as you know, a letter that Susan Rice wrote to herself to document a meeting that took place in the Oval Office has been declassified, and basically makes it very, very clear that Michael Flynn was deliberately being targeted by the Obama administration, in part because he was opposed to many of the policies that Obama was hoping was going to survive his term in office here. Unfortunately, there's this 3-year-old interview clip of Susan Rice, which resurfaced this week, in which she denied knowledge of the Trump team surveillance. Well, obviously, if she wrote the letter about the meeting, she had to be there. So she fibbed, which I don't know why anybody would be shocked by that anymore. I mean, the lie is the standard coin of the realm in Washington, D.C. I was talking the other day about William Barr, who's out there talking tough about the rule of law, and we've got to make sure these things are transparent. Then he backs off and says, well, we're not going to investigate Obama. We're not going to investigate Biden. I'm probably not going to file any charges. But, the question is not whether they're innocent, but did they commit a crime? And he waffles back and forth. He should open a Waffle House, really. So Trump is slamming the double standard being displayed by Attorney General Barr, as well he should. Okay, now, talk about impeachment. Because if you're like me, you thought that issue was over. House impeached, the Senate acquitted. End of story. But no, the Democrats want to come back again. We're getting close to November. We need the president to be under impeachment investigation. Doesn't matter if he did anything or not. We just need to have him under an investigation so we can go to the campaign trail with that. Oh, would you vote a president under impeachment back into office here? And the issue, of course, is they're trying to construct a case that the reason that no evidence was found supporting the Russiagate allegations is that Trump had to be interfering with the investigation. I mean, the logic is so simple and sound. How could you not understand that? If we didn't find any evidence, that's the proof right there. Really threw the looking glass on this. Well, a little bit of a respite from this. The Supreme Court blocked the House Democrats from receiving the Mueller grand jury material. They can't get it until there actually is a formal impeachment investigation, which has to be started in the House. And I know they've got the votes to do it. But for some reason, they're wanting to delay taking that step, probably till we get a little bit further into the summer. So the Supreme Court issued a stay on all actions regarding this grand jury material in order to allow the House Democrats from the House Judiciary Committee to make their case. It's on appeal right now. But yeah, they want another election here. All righty. So now, the Ukrainian judge has ordered Hunter Biden, Joe Biden named as perpetrator of a crime in the Shokin firing. Now, for those of you who have not been following along, basically, Shokin was a prosecutor, and he was investigating Hunter Biden over some of the corruption having to do with Burisma Oil Company. And it's a story, Joe Biden basically used the carrot of $1 billion in IMF funding to Ukraine on the condition that Poroshenko fire the prosecutor Shokin, which Poroshenko did. That's certainly interfering with the internal politics of another country. It's a violation of the Logan Act, I might add. And so now the Ukrainian judge is saying, yeah, there was a crime. There was a crime, and while I don't think there will be an extradition or anything, it's something else that Joe Biden is carrying into the election for November here. Republicans have issued a Biden-Burisma probe subpoena. They want to find out what the relationship is between the Bidens and Burisma. Already the Bidens are out there saying, well, it was a mistake to get involved with them. We didn't realize how corrupt they were. Honestly, we thought they were just all above board, and we were going to get involved with them here. Joe Biden has given Donald Trump a new nickname, President Tweety, and demands he get off social media and focus on the pandemic crisis. Well, Donald Trump is facing the same problem with the pandemic that we all are, a lack of certain absolute information. He's getting one version of things from Dr. Fauci and another version of things from Department of Homeland Security and another version from these people over there. Nobody really knows for sure. The models don't agree with each other. We know in some cases, like the one from Neil Ferguson, the models are completely bollocksed up. Bad coding, garbage in, garbage out. Unfortunately, I have to say, I do agree with Joe Biden. I think Trump spends way too much time on social media. And I know he's trying to get his message out to the people without it going through the filter of the corporate media. But I was noticing the other day how much of Trump's tweets I hear about through the corporate media with the filtering reapplied. Because I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter because of all the censorship and abuse that goes on over there anyway. So it strikes me as kind of a pointless thing. And yeah, that's Trump's job, is to fix the problems, not to go on out and prove how clever he is with a smartphone. Kamala Harris is shaming senators for doing the president's personal bidding and approving the Hunter Biden subpoena. And I don't know, I'd like to see a little more dignity to what's going on in our government. I mean, this is supposed to be our government. They're supposed to represent the best here. So here's what's going on. The White House portraits of Barack and Michelle Obama will not be unveiled until Donald Trump leaves office because of the two presidents' bitter clashes. So apparently the portraits are just sitting in a closet someplace. They're not going to be hung until Donald Trump is out of office. This is getting a little petty and a little childish, I think, and there's more of that coming on here. Nancy Pelosi doubles down on calling Donald Trump obese, mocking him as a confabulator and a kid with doggy doo on his shoes. Okay, Nancy, a little more dignity for the office, okay? That's one of the things that we, the American people, are expecting from our political leaders, is that they set an example. And this is not a good example to set here. Tucker Carlson slammed Pelosi, saying people with glass faces should not, hurl stones. And he's right about that. But again, to talk about doggy doo from a member of the House of Representatives, is this really the best that we can do? We need our president to act presidential. We need our senators to act senatorial. We need our representatives to act like our representatives and represent the best in us, not go around talking about doggy doo. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show. And speaking of money, yet another reminder that Republic Broadcasting is holding a perpetual fundraiser, and for that matter, so is whatreallyhappened.com. And the reason is simple. It does cost to keep all of this stuff operating. Equipment breaks, which is what happened yesterday on my show. And we need your help. It's that plain and simple. We can't do it without you, in fact. So the postal address where you can send a check, Money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And of course, donations to whatreallyhappened.com. There's a little button on the main page. Now, finishing up with our little bit of childish behavior from occupants of the White House here. Apparently, Obama has indicated he's got no interest in joining Trump for the unveiling of Trump's presidential portrait. Or maybe that's Obama's presidential portrait. Not really sure, but from the headline. But again, it seems like so petty. It really, really does. Okay, let's get into the international news here. We've been talking for a few days about this potential clash that's coming. Iran has sent tankers delivering fuel to Venezuela, and apparently the United States is out there saying, no, we've established an exclusive economic zone here. We're blockading, which is an act of war, by the way. So Venezuela's military is sending some naval ships out, some warships out, to escort those tankers in to Venezuela. That's opening up the possibility of an actual exchange of fire between the U.S. warships and the Venezuela warships. And I don't see the Venezuelans backing down, especially looking at the poor performance of America's recent crop of warships here. But the country's defense minister, Vladimir Pedrino, revealed yesterday that the escort would welcome them in and thank the Iranian people for their solidarity and cooperation. Pedrino also said the Venezuelan government had been in contact with Iranian Defense Minister Brigadier General Amir Hatami. So U.S. sanctions on Venezuela have strangled the South American country's economy. In January, the country was forced to shut down its last oil refinery. So even though their primary export is petroleum, Venezuela is currently experiencing a fuel shortage. Now, Iran has sent them parts to get one of their refineries back online, because that's what shut the refineries down. They couldn't buy the parts. Iran said, we'll send you the parts. Pompeo is now accusing China of helping Iran's gas for gold sanctions busting in Venezuela. Oh, they're all in cahoots together. So the U.S. is headed for another tanker war with Iran. This one's going to be in the Caribbean off Venezuela's coast. And recall that Trump recently ordered a U.S. naval buildup there to boot. Whoever fires first is going to lose in the court of world opinion here. Now, Venezuela has reportedly filed a legal claim to force the Bank of England to transfer its gold. We've been talking about this where, countries have resorted to storing their gold in the vaults of other countries like the Federal Reserve, New York, JP Morgan, the Bank of England. And all of a sudden, they find it's very, very difficult to get it back. Germany had problems getting their gold back. And Venezuela wants to get their gold back. And the Bank of England is saying, well, no, the U.S. told us not to. So they're going to court to try and get it back that way. What they basically need to do is liquidate it in order to get funds to fight the COVID-19 pandemic down there. So the Russian envoy to the United Nations, Dmitry Polyansky, told members of the Security Council that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Venezuela should be upheld through Caracas' own domestic dialogue rather than foreign interference. And the recent breach of sovereignty poses a direct threat to the country's peace. Now, Russia is preparing a draft Security Council press statement to address the above-mentioned issues. The U.S. will scream, veto, veto, veto. We want a war. We've worked for it. We deserve it. We shall not be denied. All right, regime change is back in focus. Pompeo targets Iran, Cuba, and Venezuela in this epic tweet thread. There's another guy who spends way too much time on social media here. So there has been a very noticeable rise in threatening rhetoric focused on not only Iran, but China, and just starting on Cuba. Does Pompeo really think we can go to war with all these countries all at the same time? Because we can. Whether we'd win or not is another matter entirely. So Pompeo went gloves off on Twitter, backing Ayatollah al-Khamenei's anti-Semitic. Disgusting. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and I'm just watching on TV where President Trump is touring the Ford factory where they're making ventilators, and of course Trump is not wearing a face mask. Everybody around him is. Trump is not. And some of the media talking heads have been making a big deal about this. Why isn't he? I mean, we're all supposed to be wearing face masks. Why isn't Trump? I think Trump should. If we're all supposed to be wearing face masks, I think he should. And I know he's taking the hydroxychloroquine as a preventative, which is the subject of much debate on its own merits as well. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, getting back to the international news, India and China are sending more troops to their disputed border in the Ladakh region after the recent scuffle, where apparently two patrols got into a fist fight with each other. And boy, oh boy, everybody's angry at everybody. Ankara is warning of serious consequences after Haftar's Air Force reveals plan to strike Turkish units. Now, Turkey began sending troops into Libya January to shore up the UN-backed government of national accord, meaning the government that everybody wants to put in place on Libya rather than allow those Libyan people to run their own country. I mean, what kind of an idea is that, right? So before that, Ankara provided the GNA with military equipment to assist Tripoli in its ongoing campaign against the Tobruk-based government and the Libyan National Army of General Khalifa Haftar. This is what war looks like from the side of the invaders, which is exactly what's going on here. Now, Turkish Foreign Ministry spokesman Hami Aksoy has warned there would be serious consequences for Haftar's forces if the Libyan National Army attacked Turkish troops operating in Libya. I got an idea. How about we get the Turkish troops in Libya to go back to Turkey? Sounds like a good idea to me. If you want to avoid being fired on, don't invade other people's countries. They've come about with this idea that the rest of the world has some kind of an automatic right to go into country after country after country after country and say, you know, we don't think your government's doing a good job. At least they're not doing a good job for our corporations. So we're going to swap things around here a little bit. We're going to take Saddam Hussein out. We're going to put somebody else in up in Afghanistan. We're going to take the Taliban out. We're going to put Hamid Karzai in. It's still the same old game, invading another country, putting in a Vichy government of collaborators, and looting the place. And that's what future history books are going to say about these times that we're living through right now here. Meanwhile, over at antiwar.com, Major Danny Shearson is saying, what on earth is the U.S. doing by bombing Somalia? Why are we back in there? Trump administration has quietly ramped up a vicious bombing and covert raiding campaign in Somalia amid this global coronavirus pandemic. Neither the White House nor the Pentagon has provided any explanation for the escalation. This is another war Congress has not declared and the media is not reporting on it. Raises the question, where else is the United States making war that we don't know about? Mike Pompeo came on out claiming that Iran is trying to destabilize Afghanistan, and that's why we're having to leave. No, we're having to leave for the same reason the Soviets had to leave. Nobody can take Afghanistan. U.S. intelligence is acknowledging that Iran is not destabilizing Afghanistan. They're not seeking to. Iran's strategic objectives relating to Afghanistan continue to be maintaining a stable Afghan central government and security along Iran's eastern border. I don't know. The Trump administration is a disappointment. They really are. Alrighty, Iran's supreme leader announced yesterday his country would support and assist any nation or any group anywhere in its struggles against Israel. His comments follow a Palestinian withdrawal from agreements with Israel over its proposed annexation of the West Bank. Basically, the deal of the century is off. Or maybe it's on and nobody really knows for sure, because the annexation appears to have been part of the deal, but the Palestinians are saying, no, we're not going to go along with it. And Israel will say, well, see, it's the Palestinians' fault. We made them an offer. We'll take your land off of your hands for you for free. And they turned us down. The Zionist regime has proven it won't abide by any treaty and understands no logic except force, Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei wrote in a Wednesday statement posted on Twitter as a series of tweets. Maybe I should be paying more attention to Twitter. The nature of the Zionist regime is incompatible with peace because the Zionists seek to expand their territories and will not be limited to what they have already occupied. Well, we all know about Eretz Israel. They want to create the Israel described in the Bible from the Nile to the Euphrates. Pompeo has congratulated the president of Taiwan on starting his second term. China, of course, has responded, condemning U.S. interference in China's internal affairs. Mainland China considers Taiwan part of its territory and its attempts at independence more of a revolution. And they are very angry that the United States is coming on in trying to split Taiwan off from China. As an issue is the Taiwan Strait, which is a major shipping port, which is why everybody's fighting over it right now. Anyway, China is urging the United States to cut all official ties with Taiwan, stop upgrading substantive relations with Taiwan, and stop interfering in China's internal affairs. China has also announced that they support improvement of Hong Kong's political system. Well, there's really nothing wrong with the Hong Kong political system from the point of view of the people who live in Hong Kong. But Beijing has now legalized persecution of Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement with a new national security law. China had that leasehold deal with Great Britain that sort of made Hong Kong kind of separate. Well, that's now off, and Hong Kong views itself as a separate entity. They are quite capitalistic compared to the communist mainland, China. But China wants to basically reabsorb them. They want Hong Kong to be part of the control of Beijing again. U.S. is pressuring Israel to sever all economic ties with China and saying that polite deflection will no longer cut it. The State Department has launched a quiet campaign to pressure America's allies, including Great Britain, Germany, and Australia, to prohibit parts made by telecoms giant Huawei in their 5G networks, as evidence of backdoors in other Huawei products, and Chinese companies are often required to cooperate with state intelligence agencies. Well, the same thing happens here in the United States. For what it's worth, Huawei has persistently denied cooperating with Beijing and has offered to sign a no-spying pledge. Try and get one of those from our government. In fact, right now, the Congress is in there. I think they just voted down a new privacy bill to allow your browsing history to be looked at without a warrant. Talk about living in a glass house and throwing stones. Anyway, Great Britain has decided to allow some Huawei equipment in certain non-essential parts, and they got a dressing down from Donald Trump. This is not about spying. It's not about privacy. It's about market share. That's what it's about. Everybody understands 5G is going to be a huge moneymaker, and everybody wants to have their piece of the pie is bigger than everybody else's piece of the pie. That's what the politics is in this. Huawei is a world leader in cell phone communication technology, and they were one of the first to get into 5G. And American companies are struggling to catch up. And it's much easier to get the government to say we're going to ban foreign competition and do our own 5G here. May be more expensive, may not work as well, but by golly, you will buy American. Now, we've been talking about Elon Musk, who came on out with this idea that he was not going to own any more homes, and he started putting as many properties for sale. A lot of people saying, what's going on? And one theory is that Elon Musk is looking forward to a real estate crash in the very near future. And that is supported by this other story that came out of Zero Hedge about a mystery investor has dropped $333 million in real estate exchange traded funds in a dark pool trade. And apparently the mystery investor blew out more than 10.5 million shares of an S&P 500 real estate fund last week. That amounts to about 7.4% of outstanding shares in the real estate select sector SPDR fund, a macro indicator of the industry's largest companies. So it looks to me like the insiders, the experts, are predicting a major, major upset in real estate. Speaking of upset, the Dow closed 101 points down today. Another article, this one coming out of Zero Hedge. The Fed's $600 billion middle market Main Street lending facility has turned out to be a total disaster. The Federal Reserve is currently undertaking one of the trickiest projects it's ever taken on, lending $600 billion with a B directly to companies that need it. It's an area where the Fed hasn't really ventured, as the Wall Street Journal points out, and one that puts them far closer to the realm of directing fiscal policy in the country than they've ever been. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want a privately owned central bank that exists to make itself richer directing the fiscal policy of the nation. That's supposed to be the purview of the government that we have elected to take care of this nation for the benefit of we the people. But we're losing it. We're losing our grip over control of this nation. We're not going to be citizens much longer. We're going to be tenants. Federal Reserve is estimating the economy is going to fall by 43%, in part because of the damage from the coronavirus lockdowns here. And the collapse is already becoming visible. For lease and space available signs are starting to go up all over America. Claire and I saw a bunch of them on our drive down to Walmart the other day. U.S. banks are currently on the hook for $150 billion in frozen loans as millions of Americans skip their credit card and car payments. They've lost their jobs. They don't have any money. So 1 month ago, after the banks reported first quarter earnings, it looked like the major U.S. money center banks saw their loan loss provision surge by roughly 4 times from year-ago levels in response to the expected deterioration in their loan books, with J.P. Morgan jumping the most, or just over 5 times, hinting the other banks are likely under-provisioned for the storm that is coming. Well, that's okay. We'll just go over to the Federal Reserve, crank up the printing presses. Actually, the printing presses are still at the Treasury Department, but they work under the direction of the Federal Reserve. Apparently, wealthy New Yorkers who are fleeing the pandemic have triggered a surge of real estate buys in Connecticut, with some single-family homes selling for millions of dollars. Hope they don't discover this little place down here in Indiana. Life prices through the roof here. Okay, we have been talking about the censorship that is going on in corporate social media. And apparently Facebook has consigned PragerU to what is called reduced visibility. And what they did, their sin, they challenged the idea that polar bears are hovering on the edge of extinction because of human-caused global warming. That's it. Facebook has accused them of sharing false news. Now, the fact is the polar bears were never in danger. First of all, polar bears float. Their fur is actually hollow, and that keeps them warm and it keeps them buoyant. That's why the fur looks white. There's that little tube of open space down the middle of it. Polar bears, at their skin, are actually black. Most people don't realize that. Cute little suckers. Polar bears have become so numerous up in Canada, they're now regarded as pest animals. They're not endangered. So PragerU was sentenced to the shadow realm of reduced distribution after posting a video to its Facebook page debunking the oft-deployed environmentalist trope that polar bear populations are on the brink of extinction because the ice caps are melting. Remember when Al Gore said the Arctic would be completely ice-free? I think it was in 2004. Still got a lot of ice up there. And in fact, a winter storm here in the middle of May, almost into June, brings fresh snow to Lake Tahoe, the snow level dropping down to 6,000 feet. And part of the issue, of course, is the sun has gone into a very mild period, a grand solar minimum, where 3 of the known solar cycles are lining up at the bottom. There haven't been any sunspots for 100 days. The repeat of the Maunder minimum, and we're going to have a little ice age. And even in the middle of the ice age, with the Thames River frozen again and the ice fares in full bloom, you're still going to have these global warming people out there say, the world is melting, the world is melting. No, it isn't. It's freezing. Let's get more CO2 up into the atmosphere. No, that wouldn't work. NASA proved it actually acts as a coolant. The fact of the matter is that Mother Nature still holds control on this planet. And all the politicking and fundraising and Greta Gunbergs aren't going to change that here. India and Bangladesh are evacuating millions from the coast ahead of a super cyclone. Cyclone Amphan is expected to make landfall in both countries. Wind gusts of up to 115 miles an hour, the equivalent of a Category 3 Atlantic hurricane. It hit yesterday, actually, near the Indian city of Kolkata, which has a population of more than 14 million people. Now, fortunately for us, that hurricane that came up on the Carolinas bounced back into the Atlantic, didn't make it inland. A little bit of good news there. There has been a 5.8 earthquake in the central Mediterranean Sea region near the Greek islands of Muthoni and Kalamata. And it struck in the maritime region of the central Mediterranean Sea on Thursday, earlier today, according to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center. All right, do you remember the big scandal over bribing universities to take your kids in? Remember Lori Loughlin? Well, apparently they changed their plea deal from not guilty to guilty. They got a sweetheart plea bargain. And Lori is going to serve just 2 months in prison. And her husband, Massimo Giannulli, will serve 5 months for bribing college officials to get their daughters into school. Olivia Jade and Isabella into the University of Southern California. And it was a $500,000 bribe disguised as a donation. And I understand that parents who've got money want to do everything they can to give life's advantages to their kids. But let's be honest, it's not fair to the other students who got there on work and determination and skill and academic achievement. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials. We're going to start opening up the phone lines in the next segment, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And apparently Donald Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, is free. He's released early from the 3-year sentence for lying about cash for Stormy Daniels. And apparently he's got a book deal already set to go here. And we'll see what happens with that. I don't know. I don't think it's something I'd want to buy. Anyway, NASA has renamed a deep space telescope after Nancy Grace Roman. And if it's a name that you have not heard, it goes back to the early male-centric culture of NASA. And there's a movie out there called, it's about the original calculators, the females who did most of the calculations before the computers came along. And it's a very good movie, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, so they've renamed this Wide Field Infrared Survey Telescope after Nancy Grace Roman, one of the first women to work at the agency and a pivotal figure in the development of the Hubble telescope. Meanwhile, scientists are trying to excavate urgently a Viking ship that served as a coffin for a king and queen 1,000 years ago. Apparently, the Okal has become infected with a fungus that is eating it away, and they're trying to get it out of the ground and get it restored. All right, let's start taking some phone calls. We're going to start with Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Good day to you. Yeah, Michael, what's on my mind? First off, this Lori Loughlin, I heard she's going to plead guilty, and she's going to do some time. Her and her husband are going to do time. They're going to pay over $500,000. Well, I think that's good news. And I didn't realize there's 38 other people are going to be going to jail too, I believe. But the reason I called, Michael, really is this Pigs Pelosi, these Democrats have the gall to say that we need to lower the flag at half-staff for the coronavirus, but you had 5,996 Americans murdered by illegal aliens, okay, angel mothers and fathers.
Yes.
How come they didn't lower the flag for that, Michael?
Because they don't count. Those people voted Republican. That's why we're not lowering the flag.
Well, that's right. And all these politicians that are call out these demon rats for what they are, they're liars. And you know, here in Florida, Michael, the virus, now they're saying all the radio stations down here in South Florida that the virus now, you can touch, you can't get the coronavirus from touching solid objects and stuff. So now they have all these double standards of what you could get it, you can't. Everything's been a big hoax, like I told you from the beginning. This coronavirus thing is starting to turn into a hoax. Okay, now you got people wearing face shields with no mask, thinking they're not going to get it now, but you can get it in the eyes. The whole thing has become a farce. I mean, yeah, people are dying, but most of the people dying are 82 years old in age. Okay?
Yes.
Very few young people are dying. When you're 82 years old, you're coming home. Pretty soon, you're around 30, you're going home. You're almost at the plate. Now, we're getting back to Nancy Pelosi and the Demon Rat Party. They've allowed all these Americans to get murdered. Okay?
Yes.
There's nobody calling out the sanctuary cities. And by the way, Michael, here they're talking in the radio today here in South Florida that since 2015 till 2020, there's been over 300,000 Chinese babies born in California alone, the anchor babies.
Yes.
This,
Tom, I got to put you on hold. Tom, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back with more phone calls. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, if you could just sort of pick up where you left off.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Michael. Like I said, here they're reporting down here in the media down here in South Florida that there's been over 300,000 Chinese babies born illegally in California. Who's paying for this? You got over 200, according to what I heard today. There's 287,000 homeless in the state of California. You got 300,000 Chinese babies born there illegally. You got 8 million illegals there. You got Pigs Pelosi saying she wants to flag down at half-staff in June once the coronavirus hits 100,000. But you had 6,000 Americans murdered by illegal aliens who these Democrats should actually be put in jail for murder, okay? This guy Como has allowed these people to die in these nursing homes because he knew what was going on. Como should be charged with murder for what he's done. And now that one caller, a couple of you callers called in last week and said that. And, yeah, Michael, this thing is spinning out of control. And by the way, here in South Florida, they're talking about there's 500 doctors in Mexico trying to help the Mexicans with the coronavirus. And the average doctor in Cuba, all these Cubans down here are talking, the average Cuban in Cuba is lucky if he makes $1,800 a year. Did you know that?
Yes.
If you make $1,800 a year in Cuba as a doctor, you're making a lot of money. That's why they all want to go to Mexico, because they get better stuff. They get better food and all that, because they don't have all the luxuries in Cuba that they have in Mexico. So now these Cubans here are attacking what happened to Castro's revolution. And by the way, they also reported that Castro, the brothers Castros, have over $20 million in antique weaponry in their mansions. Did you know that?
Yes.
They confiscated over $20 million in weapons from, like, all these old Winchester rifles and all this old stuff that was in the Cuba back in the 40s and 30s, and they got millions of dollars worth. So who these people are not communists, Michael. They're rays. They're kings. They're filthy liars. Communism, China's nothing compared to Cuba when it comes to communism. They got better highways in China than we got here in the United States.
True.
And better airports. So how are they communists? They stole from whoever. I don't know what's going on with that. But we made China filthy rich because, like I told you, in 1974, they didn't have nothing. 98% of their population were riding around on bicycles. Nixon goes over there and he opened up. That was the dumbest thing maybe that ever happened. He opened China up like that. Now they got all these factories and everything for greed. Filthy, low-life greed is what this is, Michael. It's
well,
like
wait
the
a minute.
Democratic Party.
Hang on a second. It wasn't just Nixon. Yes, he opened the door, but you had all these American corporate executives saying, well, we can get our products made more cheaply in China than here. They're the ones who made China a manufacturing superpower. All China did was say, there's a market need here. They want to buy this stuff. We can make it. And yeah, China became very rich because you can't really make a nation rich without having a product to sell. And what does the United States have to sell? Weapons that don't work, agriculture that's tainted with GMO. That's where things went wrong. We used to be a world leader in manufacturing, and we just gave it away. And China and these other countries aren't going to be stupid enough to just give it back to us.
Well, Michael, I agree. Nixon had nothing to do with selling us out. And I meant Nixon opened us up. I didn't say that it was Nixon. I don't blame Nixon at all. He was just trying to be a world leader and saying that, we're trying to be friendly with China because we don't need it. But, when you got a guy like Bill Clinton selling gyro systems to the North Koreans, that's the guy that really betrayed us, is Slick Willie. Willie and Barry Soetoro Hussein Dumbo Obama. That was those are the backstabbers on Biden with Burisma and the Chinese. His son getting filthy rich off of China and Russia. Biden, bumbling moron Biden, and people want to vote for this guy. So he's going to pick whoever his running mate is going to be leading the Democratic Party, not Biden. That's for sure. I don't think he's going to last 4 years. If he's not going to win, I don't believe, because the guy's he's a bumbling buffoon.
Yep.
But listen, every speech he bumbles, he mumbles. This guy's like mumbles and Dick Tracy. It's unbelievable. But getting back to what I really want to tell you, Michael, about the Democratic Party with their modus operandi, like you've been saying for over a year, and they want these illegal voters. And no matter what Donald Trump does for the Afro-American community, I'm not going to pull no more bullcrap. He's lucky if he can get 20% of that vote. Because I don't care if he gave every one of them $1 million. 80% of them will vote Democrat. Maybe
yes.
20. Maybe he can get 22%. And I'll be honest about it. I believe Trump will get 20% of the Afro-American vote. But if he gets 30%, it'll blow my mind. Because I don't care how much money he gives them. I don't care what his policies are. They'll still vote mainly Democrat because that's just the way it is and how it is and who they will stand by. So, unfortunately, that's the way it is. Now, getting back to what I want to say about, and I know you got other callers coming. Pelosi should be held, and Feinstein should be held for treason with these sanctuary cities. And I hope now, after all this Flynn stuff's over, that Trump says, hey, you know what? There's no way. People are going to jail for this. The mayors, everybody, Newsom, they all should be going to jail. They're trying to extort our government for more money in California. The Californians. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like you just mentioned, do you want your state, Indiana, to have all these New Yorkers going into Indiana? Let them go to Connecticut. Let them go to Boston, Massachusetts. We surely don't hope they don't come here. I don't. I don't want their liberal taxing policies. I don't want it. No way. We got a great governor down here. He don't take crap, DeSantis. Matter of fact, they're opening a Disney World and Universal probably within another week or so on June 1st. They will be opening up.
That's
in the
good.
news today. And Michael, I will let you know this. Here in the stores over here, you ain't going to believe this. There is so much meat. Well, I went in the store yesterday. I couldn't believe all the meat. All the racks are full of meat now. They got masks. They're selling thousands of. They have boxes and boxes of masks. They give you a 10-pack for $10, $1 a mask, and they sell them in bundles here in Florida now, South Florida. I mean, you go in these supermarkets. All the supermarkets around here got thousands of masks now all of a sudden. How'd this happen? And in a week's time, there's millions of masks now being in these stores being sold. The meat and chicken is off the chain. I mean, the chicken's gotten expensive. Don't get me wrong. All the meat and chicken's off the charts. But it's full. The racks are full of meat. Full of meat. The seafood, it's unbelievable. So as far as this coronavirus here, what they're reporting down here is that you can't get corona basically by touching anything. Matter of fact,
well, it's hard to. It's a lot harder than CDC initially said. You can still get it, but you have to work at it.
Correct, and a couple of your callers are right. They're starting to say now that the mask actually can make you sicker once you get kind of like the coronas. You actually will get sicker. If you have coronas and you wear a mask, you can actually get sicker than to get better, especially if you're elder. So. There's so much hypocrisy with this nonsense here. And, Michael, I hope you, before your show ends today, that somebody has a conclusion. Who really is behind this Wuhan virus? Was it China? Was it the United States making some of the lab? What's the real truth about this? I mean, come on, it's been almost 3 months and nobody knows really where this came from? Seriously? We don't know how this thing spread off like a wildfire? No, it's got to come to a conclusion. Who is actually responsible for this? And I believe that Trump did do a right thing, Michael, when he slowed down this immigration problem. We can't allow all these people to pouring in here from China, from these third world countries. Matter of fact, Michael, they just got 2 boatloads of Haitians trying to come sneak into South Florida. They caught them out in the Atlantic Ocean. They're still trying to get over here in droves. California, the Mexican border is still being breached every day. No, it's got to be zero immigration, total moratorium for no immigration, never illegal. And if it's legal immigration, we need a 10-year timeout, minimum. 10 years, nobody comes in here. Nobody, zero, zilch. You want to come visit, you want to stay here with a visa for 6 months, 60 days, then you get out. And if you get caught, you will be put in jail until you are deported out of here. We can't do this licky-kissy, touchy-feely, patty cake, baker man anymore, man. This has got to be where strict laws are filed and enforced. And this starts with sanctuary cities and people being arrested. Like this Lord.
We already have the laws. They're not being enforced. We already have the laws. It's called Title 8.
Well, Michael, look at how many kids got into college because their parents were rich and they were dumber in a box of rocks, but they're getting college degrees. She was trying to say her 2 kids were rowers in a row team. They never rowed a boat in their life. But they're getting USC scholarships and all college degrees. Give me a break. No, man. Laws have got to be enforced like they used to be enforced back in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s, and the 50s. Now this all this crap with immigration, this Ted Kennedy, that murdering rat, he pumped his 1960, what was it, Immigration Act of 65 or whatever, with that guy Manny Cuellar. These people should have been put in prison for what they did to this country. And matter of fact, I'll let you go. I know you got other callers, Michael, but one more thing. I guarantee you.
One more thing only. One more thing only.
You know, Michael, it's got to be, English has got to be enforced as the official language of the country. We're going to lose this country in 10 years. Guaranteed. Thank you for taking my call, Michael.
All right. Thank you, Tom. We're going to switch over to Jim. Jim in Illinois. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, do you get the impression the way the world is today is like a Fellini movie?
Yes, very much so. I've never seen it this crazy in my life, and I'm coming up on my 68th birthday.
You know, I wake up each morning, and I don't even know what day it is. You know, it's like a Fellini movie. I guess he's having a field day, you know, as far as directing the world.
More like Groundhog Day. Every day the same thing happens over and over and over again.
Right. This is very true. But my point is, the reason I call mainly, you know, you're talking about the governor of Michigan, and this is something that people are either neglecting, don't want to talk about. Flint, Michigan is still a mess. Those people are still suffering. And one of the first things that the governor of Michigan did, she got rid of the, she ended the prosecution of those people that were responsible for the Flint situation.
Yes.
And that water today is still tainted.
Yeah, it is.
But yet still no one talks about that. You know, I'm not a fan of the governor, but lady, you know, why did you stop the prosecution of those people that were about to go to jail? And why are you not focusing on people who are suffering in your state? You know, that's something that really disturbs me about her. So, but again, Michael, that's basically, I will let you go. You take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Man, Tom was ripping it.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Mike, I'm Lori Laughlin. Yeah, 2 months and her husband gets 5 months. Isn't her husband like a clothing designer?
I'm not really sure, but, you know, she's better known because of her acting career. But I mean, 2 months.
Yeah, I think her husband. But you know, Mike, isn't that the status quo? In the end of the, it doesn't matter. Lloyd Laughlin, Republicans, Democrats, Trump, Bush, Clinton, Obama, they're all getting away, man. Like you think Obama's ever going to be prosecuted, or Susan Rice, or
not according to William Barr?
Come on, man. Huh?
Not according to William Barr.
Yeah, see, well, we all know about William Barr, and who put him in, Mike? You know, all roads lead to what? Rome? All roads lead to Trump. He put all these people in, Mike. Mike Pompeo, right? Elliot Abrams, Gina Haspel, right? William Barr. We all know about William Barr. All these people are part of the establishment. Nothing's going to be fixed. I mean, you people, some of your listeners, well, Trump's going to do that. Ain't going to do crap, Mike. I'm sorry. Like, it's already 2020. We're almost to June, guys. What's
We're
changed?
in an election year,
Nothing.
which is when you expect the president to do something. And,
Yeah.
you know, he founded his campaign on the economy, which is clearly not doing well. And he's got, you know, the pandemic on which he can blame it. And then he's got all these Democratic governors who are refusing to open up their states and get the economy going again. I mean, it's a real mess. And all I can say to Donald Trump is, you wanted the job and you got it and you're stuck with it now.
Well, Mike, not only do you have geopolitics going on, you got national politics going on. So there's a lot of, you know, like, I mean, Trump for Florida was praising DeSantis. Like, didn't they just cover up something like about like deaths, and there was a report of like cover up of the health. They wanted the woman to do something that she didn't. I mean, there's a lot of, look, it's, at the end of the day, it always comes down to your party.
She's claiming she was fired because she refused to fudge the data on this website that she was involved in. Now, DeSantis is saying she was fired for insubordination, and he's denying that there was any data manipulation going on. So somewhere between those two extremes lies the truth.
But Mike, you know what? This was months ago. I don't remember there was reports coming out that the numbers were fudged in Florida. I don't know if you remember that. There was like reports months ago. And like, you know what, Mike? It's like everybody, it's like, I said it before, they're on their own, they're just on their own page. There's no coordination at all. You know, like Trump, he's on hydroxychloroquine, and Neil Cavuto goes off on him, right? Mike,
yep.
And Mike Pence isn't. You know, like it's a big game. You see, like Moderna. You notice one report, Moderna, their tests work, and another report it don't work. What the hell is going on here?
Same thing with the Oxford vaccine. One report says it's a huge success. The other one says all the monkeys got sick.
And Mike, what happened to Fauci and the CDC? Now it's like 24 hours later, the virus is off. I don't know. I mean, does anybody know anything about viruses? How long does a virus actually stay on a surface? Not the coronavirus, but any virus. Like, why all of a sudden is it coming out? You know, it's just odd at this moment in time. Why the hell that's going on? I don't know. I mean, I don't put my... Oh, sorry?
I was going to say, the virus particle by itself will not survive in the outside atmosphere. The oxygen will destroy it. UV light will destroy it. The issue is when virus particles are trapped inside droplets of moisture coming from a patient, you know, and it gets on a surface, how long before enough of that blob of water, liquid phlegm, evaporates to expose the virus particle? And that can be anywhere up to 9 hours.
Yeah, and we don't know because there's no accurate information with any of this stuff.
That's been the problem all along.
Yeah, why is that? Like, everybody's on their own page because of politics, Mike. Like the whole mask issue you brought up, the N95. You know,
yes.
N95 is actually like the only mask, unless you have a gas mask with a particle with a particle filter on it. The N95 and up is the only thing that's going to do. Everything else they sell at the food stores, what is it, bandanas, they don't really do crap.
No,
okay?
Bandanas are all but useless.
Yeah, so you can't say masks don't work. It's N95s and up work. Okay,
yes. And
then up, I mean the gas masks with the particle filters, or the nuclear, biological, chemical warfare mask. But I mean, it's a biological entity, guys. You know, but I mean, the food stores are selling, Amazon is selling all these generic surgeon masks that are probably like fake. They don't work. You know, so I mean, it's you know what, people call in and say, oh, masks don't work. Well, yeah, those masks don't work. It's a fine line between what works and what don't work.
Yes.
You know, but man, what a mess this whole thing is, Mike. Like, it's like we can't even agree on what masks work.
Well, I'll tell you, those ones that people are making at home, unless they go out and get a specific, very, very fine cloth, maybe like a fine silk or something, but just using ordinary cloth that you would find in T-shirts and whatnot as a face mask, no, the pores in it are just simply too big.
And Mike, before I get off the phone,
do you want to know what a good size reference is for this virus particle? If you had a human being that was 27 miles tall, one particle of the COVID-19 virus would be the size of a grain of salt. That's the scale that we're working at here.
Now that's crazy. Everybody think about it. Mike, before I get off the phone, Canadian Prepper has a couple good videos, the last few. But I mean, some of your listeners got to do some real research and think about this. This is a real virus. It doesn't affect only 80-year-old people in old people's homes. You don't know what your respiratory system's capable of. You just can't throw everybody out there in a wilderness. That's why there's a slow opening of everything. But man, did you just see the beaches? It's just an overflow of people. I mean, that ain't gonna work, Mike. Mike, have a good night and a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? First of all, I want to tell you, when we get back to China again, we got to stop thinking of, worrying about China. China didn't cause this problem. Our own, and neither did socialism, by the way. Our own predatory capitalism has this problem by trading our jobs away so they can make more profits, paying off the phony politicians to let them do it, right?
Yes.
That's not China's fault, all right? The other thing is about communism and socialism. The only reason Venezuela is having such a hard time today is because of us. We're practically blockading them. We did the same thing in Cuba. Okay? Actually, Rivero, actually a very good guy from what I understand. He actually is, he's actually a Christian himself. He believes in democracy, not a dictatorship at all. He was elected fairly by the people.
Yes.
But the corporate interests in this country don't want to hear that. And that's what's pushing this stuff. Same thing, by the way, with Iran. Iran is not the monster they make them out to be either. I'm beginning to wonder whether the Soviet Union was really the monster we made them out to be. I kind of doubt it when I looked at it now. But, and I just want to comment a little
they
bit
were
about
merely different.
Yeah, it was another economic system. That's basically what it was.
Yep.
And China is kind of a hybrid of capitalism and communism. And I don't know if this is true. I heard from a guy. There's a guy named Caleb Malpin. He's got a show on YouTube. He's also on RT. He's a reporter on RT. He's an American, but I mean, he's from Ohio, as a matter of fact. He's an expert on communism, and he says that the Chinese actually own 90% of the Chinese people own their own homes. Now, I was always told if you're in a communist country, you can't own your own home, you can't do this, you can't have private property. Nonsense, right? Now, I don't know if I believe the 90% part, but obviously you are allowed to own your own home there. Meanwhile, look how expensive in so many places. You were just saying about Connecticut, what's happening there. By the way, I don't think those people are going to get away with it because they're counting on New York. New York is moving out and buying homes there. The only problem with that is those $1 million apartments are going to be worth maybe $20,000 by the time they try to sell them. So who wants to move back into that dump?
Yes.
So I think those people have high expectations. But this is what capitalism is about. It's greed. It develops into, I used to be all for capitalism and all, but it develops into predatory capitalism, and then we all get hurt from that. I don't say I'm not for communism either. But I'm for a system that works, something in between. There's certainly, we're seeing what's happening now. This is a disgrace. So many people are unemployed, yet Wall Street is starting to do pretty well again. They went down, I think, the last couple of days a little bit, but, they're doing too good when you consider it, when they're really behind a lot of these problems. not fair when, the billionaires get even richer and everybody else gets poorer. Look at Bezos. He made something like, what is it, another 20-something billion dollars since the thing started?
Yes.
That company needs to be broken up. It needs antitrust action. If not, it needs to be nationalized and maybe made part of the post office. We can't let this keep on going. That is a recipe for revolution, right? I'm afraid we're headed to. And if they try to take these vaccines and force it on us, like Dershowitz wants, what a little nerd, what a turd that is. Ooh, I despise him. I wrote a nice little, I did a nice little video on him, by the way, the other day on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
If he gets his way and they try to force this on us, that's the Civil War right there. It won't. I always thought it would guns would trigger it off, but that's going to trigger it off right there. Too many people now know how bad these vaccines are, and this would be the mother of all bad vaccines, since it's based on an RNA, DNA, cancer-causing type of vaccines, also meant to sterilize. Right? It's poison, in other words, and people are not going to let this happen. Trump better get it through his thick head that we're not. I don't care if he doesn't wear a mask. That's up to him. I don't wear a mask either. But I think the mask is very unhealthy. I think it hurts you. It doesn't help you. You understand it, Dustin? I don't care. N40, N whatever it is, N95. Not going to help you, buddy. All right? Fresh air, sunshine, good food, exercise. That's the way. That's the mask you should put on. Got it, buddy? Not hiding in your house and wearing a mask every time you go out. I see so many people these days, too, even around here, going out with a stupid mask, walking around the street with their stupid mask on. What good is that? You're depriving yourself of needed oxygen, and you're breathing in your own carbon dioxide. Which, by the way, Mike, I think, one more thing, I think this has to do with global warming, with these global warming nutheads, because they think that that prevents global,
Mark,
breathing carbon dioxide plus global warming. Okay, sure.
I got to let you go. We're going to take a little break for commercial. We have other callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're on the air.
Okay. I'm going to avoid any mention of corona apocalypse or the corona lockdown apocalypse fraud. This nonsense is getting the best of me. Couple of things. Briefly, you mentioned the Hubble telescope earlier in the program today, and I want to tell you that back in 2008, I went to the Trinity site in October for the fall opening of the site, and visited so that I could visit the site there. And at the point of detonation, there was an elderly gentleman who was introduced to us by the guide there. He was holding an orange piece of paper, which was a pass given to him by his father, who was one of the chief physicists on the Manhattan Project, and in charge of procurement. He gave it to his son to visit with other people the site of the detonation 2 weeks after the bomb was detonated. His name was Dana Matthews, as I recall, and he had been a young man living at Los Alamos at the time. Well, anyway, Dana Matthews grew up to become a physicist who became one of the chief engineers on the Hubble telescope. And I remember sitting there at the time thinking, gosh, I came here to visit the Trinity site, and I found the Hubble telescope. How lucky could I be? He was a wonderful man to talk with. He'd be easily in his 90s by now. But I really enjoyed that. It was a great experience. All right, the issue about China. We complain about businesses going to China. And in economics, you find out that there are comparative advantages with respect to land, labor, and capital. And what China's taking advantage of is disadvantage with respect to labor. It doesn't have an advantage with respect to technology or anything else. And as a result of that, now you got these a-hole MBAs from the United States who've thought that, well, we can transfer all this manufacturing over to China, dislodge all these Americans who are producing these goods for us, and we can shift it back into the United States. We're not going to charge anything less for that, so we're going to increase our profit margins. But they're not thinking about all the millions and millions of people they've displaced from the jobs, from jobs they've held for a long time. And they've never asked themselves, what are they going to do to make sure that people here who have been dislodged from those very high-paying jobs or high-paying hourly jobs or whatever are going to have the income needed to buy these expensive products we're importing back into the United States without going into excessive debt.
That's always been the problem.
Yes, and that is a key problem here. One reason I've been very skeptical of this MBA mentality running our companies now is that they're always looking at the so-called bottom line and want to figure out, well, how can we maximize our profit? Well, of course, labor costs are a significant factor in most manufacturing organizations. However, if you ship all your manufacturing overseas and it's not replaced with anything that can provide workers who have lost that income with anything approximating what they lost before, what have you really gained?
You haven't gained anything. And they did try and address this back in the 1980s with the so-called service economy, where manufacturing jobs were being replaced by service jobs on the theory that you could make a nation prosperous doing each other's laundry for a fee. Now, it did open up more taxing opportunities for the government, but the actual standard of living of Americans began a serious decline, which has not abated since.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I worked in the service industry or the consulting industry all my working life, except for the 5+ years I worked in the oil and gas industry as a geologist. And I'll tell you that, okay, yeah, some of those jobs pay pretty well, but it's always up and down. It's very iffy.
Yes.
And you cannot rely upon that as a firm basis for your economy. You have to be able to produce something. And if you're not producing anything, what you have are people who are really not selling anything other than an opinion somewhere. And to the extent that we've exported all these jobs to China and other places that have this labor advantage, this labor advantage, which means labor costs much less there, then we've really gained nothing. And you see the result of that today now, because we find ourselves in a position in which we are dependent on China for nearly everything. Look at that. We don't produce pharmaceuticals in this country. Now, I didn't realize to the extent to which we had exported pharmaceutical production to China until the last couple of months. I thought, well, maybe we had retained a lot of that. And look, I've got a lot of pharmaceutical stock in my portfolio, and it shocked me. But it's not just pharmaceuticals, of course. It's across the board. Walk through a Walmart, walk through a Target, walk through any other major store. Look on the labels, and where's it all from? It's from China. And if you walk into a store now, intent on buying something from an American producer, you're going to be very hard pressed to find something.
No, I mean, look at the iPhone.
And a country like the United States can't. Yeah, the iPhone, exactly. And look, I thought about the iPhone the other day. And people say, well, okay, how much more would an iPhone cost if it was made in the United States as opposed to China? Well, it might cost a little bit more, but I think with our advantage with respect to technology, that we could equalize those costs long term. It might not take quite as many workers to produce an iPhone, but if we put our minds to it, I think that maybe our technological capability would allow us to get there. But what we're doing now is we're relying upon lower labor costs and actually encouraging places like China, countries like China, to rely on slave labor to give us the things that we crave in this country. So we're a country in serious trouble.
I'm not sure that it's fair to say slave labor. First of all, we do have slave labor in this country in the prison industrial complex. But, one of our other callers pointed out, China is building a network of modern highways that put the United States to shame. There are obviously cars on those highways, and obviously the Chinese people are able to afford those cars with what they're being paid. Yes, it's true. Chinese people are paid less than American workers, but the cost of living in China is much lower than it is here in the United States.
Well, it is, but it's still not an excuse for exporting all of our production, or as much of production as we can, to China. We have our own people to be concerned about.
I agree.
And I'm more concerned about the American worker. I don't care about the Chinese worker. Well, I do but I care about the American workers because they are my countrymen, they are my neighbors, and I want them. I want them to succeed.
Putting America first.
Absolutely.
That's what Trump campaigned on, and that's why so many people supported him. We've got to put America first. We're not getting there, unfortunately, because the Democrats are out there trying to put, third world America first. And, maybe the plan is to crush our economy so that we become cost competitive with China.
I think that's part of it. I think that the so-called globalist agenda is to make sure that standards of living in the first world are reduced to something akin to those in the third world. I read too much of that, and I'm concerned about that. I see nothing to be gained by lowering the standard of living in this country. If you want to make sure that people elsewhere in the world have better lives, raise their standards of living. Don't lower ours.
Yeah, but then you got to start taking away from the ultra wealthy to do that, and the ultra wealthy won't let that happen. I mean, if you look at the ratio of worker pay to executive pay here in the United States, you begin to see a real problem compared to other countries like Japan, for example, where the executives they make a little more than the workers, but they're not reaping in vast sums of billions of dollars. That's why the United States, despite its economic problems, has the most billionaires of any country on earth.
I know. Like I've thought about that a lot, and I used to be very skeptical of a politician like Huey Long, but I'm beginning to look at Huey Long as somebody who was actually a visionary.
Yes.
Maybe we'll find one. It certainly isn't going to come from the major parties right now, but we've got to do something about that. Okay, Mike. Thanks. Good program today.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I want to make a comment on a couple of things, but mostly on the FBI and Obamagate, and also the educational gate, whatever you want to call that, with Lori Loughlin and all that. First off, I want to say to Tom, who I definitely agree with, DeSantis is right in ending the lockdown. However, DeSantis is the guy who went to Israel and signed away all the Floridians' free speech rights in order to get some donations. So this guy's no hero. But the other thing I want to get into is we're going to go through this whole Obamagate, Bidengate, Hillarygate thing that happened with the weaponizing of the intelligence services. And there's not going to be any accountability. And yet Lori Loughlin and her husband are going to go to jail for doing what every parent, if they could, would do. And I'm speaking as somebody who's involved with this, whose daughter went to one of these schools that is heavily engaged, that actually unmasked this whole Harvard and this pay-for-play thing in Los Angeles. One of the elite schools, a bunch of elite people going to it mostly, and that's where you go if you want to entrap people. But the point I want to, and I told you, my daughter, and I'm a former Army guy and a human resources director, and I can't afford to pay anybody off, but my little girl got into Harvard. Some of the people, by the way, who did this actually plagiarized my daughter's record. Said it was their own to get in. That actually happened. But let me tell you what happened with the FBI here. I don't know if I mentioned that to you before, but that happened. But the FBI started this thing, and you wonder, what in the world is the FBI doing? Everybody knows rich people will do anything, and I would have done anything had I had the money, frankly, to get my daughter into Harvard. She said, for 3 years, she's had a thing over her desk, I want to go to Harvard. Well, ended up she got in, she gets a full ride. But if she could have done that, I would have done anything to get her in. And you're not going to be able to penalize parents. That's what parents do. They get advantage. If they can do it, they do it. It's the institutions that take the money. It's the coaches. And by the way, Obama's kid was involved in it with scamming a tennis background to get in. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but one of Obama's daughters scammed a fake tennis background to get in. But at any rate, the FBI at the time that this investigation opened, back in 2018, I believe it was it was right after the Rosenstein and Comey and all these guys, Strzok and all the FBI was looking really bad. And so they opened an investigation. What in the world? They finally got the people on mail fraud because there's no federal statute that covers, buying your way into a school. But what they do is they pick institutions like Harvard and USC and Georgetown and Yale and rich people also. And they had 50 or 60 of these people. They only pressed charges on a couple of them, made examples. And here's what they do. They needed the good press. The FBI did.
Yes.
Strzok and Page, And so here they had a really easy target that is a lot of publicity, right? They get in headlines. And then they shake down, all these rich people and everybody. I know a couple of them. They're all rich as can be, and they're involved in these things, and the institutions are rich. And so then they go and they make the headlines. They look like Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. again and all, and they can go to these people and they can say, of the 50 or 60 other people that didn't get charged, well, your name was on the list, and we're not sure whether we should prosecute you or not. Hold out your hand for a payoff or whatever, and that's what they do. And they go to the institution and say, well, your institution, USC or whoever, was involved in this. We've got people involved in this. And we're not sure whether we should press charges on you. Of course, Harvard's got a $40 billion endowment. USC is rich as can be. And so what will they pay in order to keep these, their names out of the news? So the FBI is making money both ways, off the parents and off the institutions. And they're getting great publicity. And it ends up they charge one or two people, high profile, of course, with mail fraud, because there's no law against favoritism in college. That's the American way, obviously. Has been forever. And a couple of years ago, Michael, they did this in 2016 with college basketball, saying that, they were paying recruits and they were buying them hookers and all the things that have been going on for years with college basketball. And they targeted the big schools like Georgetown and Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky, all the blue blood basketball. And the Kentucky coach got fired. And all these coaches, by the way, that were named are multimillionaires themselves, making $5 and $6 million apiece, and will pay to keep off. Some of the ex-players who are in the NBA will pay to keep their names out, and the institutions will pay to keep their names out. But there again, there's no law against it. There's no federal law anyways. And there's the FBI trying to get low-hanging fruit with, investigations that gets them good publicity with Strzok and Page and Comey and Rosenstein and all these other people are crippling our democracy.
Yes.
But that's what they're doing. So I just wanted to point that out. And
a bribe is a bribe is a bribe, and I think bribery is still illegal, blanket. But you're right about the FBI and, the possibility of takedowns going on. I mean, look at Lori Loughlin, 2 months in jail. I mean, she could do that standing on her head. That's, that's absolutely nothing.
And by the way, Biden and Comey, they won't go to jail. None of the people who did this will go to jail. Biden, Comey, Obama, but they'll put Lori Loughlin as just trying to, buy an advantage for her kids. Bad enough, but whatever. Look at the comparison. She'll go to jail. Her husband will go to jail. Obama,
5 months.
Weaponize the intelligence. Please.
Are you still there?
It's sick. Yeah. Can
yes,
you hear me?
Is. Yes, I can hear you. We had some difficulties here.
So, Obama won't see it. He won't lose a minute's sleep over this. He'll never go to jail. Neither will Hillary. Neither will Biden. Neither will
I feel real bad about Hillary not going to jail. Anyway, Peter, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We got 2 more phone calls we're going to get through, and then it'll be the end of the show. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, I got a comment on this. Fox News just ran a story. I mean, to talk about desperation to keep the COVID-19 story going. They ran a story where somebody had done a poll that found out that most people aren't bothering to wear their pants around the house during the quarantine. And the first thing that occurs to me is, who thinks up this stuff? Why did they spend money on it? But like I said, they're trying to find some new angle to keep COVID-19 coming at you. That was just downright silly. All right, back to the phones here. Fred in Michigan. Hello, Fred. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Peter Duisberg, UCal Berkeley. In '96, the same year of the edition Eyes of Darkness. Forgot the author, but in the '96 edition, Eyes of Darkness, the author specifically cited a Wuhan 400 pathogenic contagion. Peter Duisberg, in the same year, authored Inventing HIV. And Duisberg is a PhD cell biologist and microbiologist. And then in 2014, he co-authored the book, The HIV Hoax, 2,000 Virologists. Can't be wrong. Now I ask you, Mike, whom I would say is America's preeminent cell bio microbiologist, virologist, Peter Duisberg, who authors a book in which he collaborates with 2,000 virologists. Therefore, the subtitle, 2,000 Virologists Can't Be Wrong. Why hasn't somebody connected with Peter Duisberg, Fauci, Birx, Trump, yada, yada? Why haven't they consulted him? And then I remembered, oh yeah, that's right. This is a biowarfare scenario. Who benefits from a biowarfare scenario? Okay, then I remembered TrueStream Media. TrueStream Media, one word, their presentation entitled Trump's New World Order 3 years ago. Trump's New World Order, TrueStream Media. So whenever someone ponders who's responsible, who's ultimately culpable, and who benefits, just go watch Trump's New World Order by TrueStream Media.
Well, the problem I have with that is for COVID-19 to be a biological weapon, it's not a very good one, is it?
Well, and it may be a setup. I've pondered that, Mike. It very well could be a setup for the real deal, the real weaponized pathogen.
Well, Fred, I'm going to have to let you go.
Yeah.
There's our music. It's the end of the show here. Thank you very much for the phone call. So, apologies to the callers who were still holding. I couldn't get to you. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN, spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Call your local talk radio station and just say you need to pay attention to Republic Broadcasting and what they're carrying. Please donate. We need you to keep on doing what we're doing. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America, with the lovely Lady Claire.